Hey everybody, how's it going today? Thanks for joining me, everybody as usual. David Cromwell, BB, thank you as always for being here. And Luis Castro, Michael Berto, got Brett, everybody's here. Everybody's coming in today. David Cromwell, Phil Jones, Quincy, in first as always. What's going on, Bill? Hey everyone, good to see you all. So first things, let's get a few things. I'm going to look at my list of things to talk about. We have a few things going on. First of all, I've got a masterclass coming up this weekend, the Minor Blues Mastery. You can get 33% off, and that is a live Zoom masterclass, and that is on Saturday at 12 noon Eastern Time. If you cannot make it live, you can watch it as many times as you want on the HD replay. But the fun part about the live thing is you get to ask questions, and it's a live experience, a little more fun, a little different than a course. We're breaking apart how to dig into minor blues and all different levels. I'll play a little bit when we're doing some of the examples of the pedals. But starting off with simple minor blues, how to make it more difficult, add in some cool changes, how to outline the chord changes, etc., etc. So that'll be fun, super useful, and to me, there's nothing like a good minor blues. All right. Also, I am having a UA giveaway, and the people from UA have been really kind. Sadly, only in the United States to do the giveaway. I just received notice about that because they are the ones that are mailing it directly, and they probably have some sort of international shipping thingy and all that kind of stuff. So we're giving away a brand new UA Lion and a UA Orion delay pedal, which is a tape echo kind of emulation. So super cool sounding, and you can get both of those. You win both. All you have to do is sign up. It's absolutely free, no commitment, all that kind of stuff. So the link is down below. And that'll be announced in about a month. So I'm going to do a few more videos using that pedal and just talking about it. And I really like it. So, all right, so let me just flip over to what we're going to be talking a little bit about today. And I got my pedal board. Boom. All right, so also here I also got the Manus that BV was so kind to hook me up with Keeley, and they sent this over. And they sent over the Andy Timmons Mark III Overdrive, which sounds great too. And the Manus is a clone with a few tweaks that I quite like a bit. Yeah. All right, so before we start blabbing, I am blabbing, but I'm going to play a little bit so we can just hear the Lion. Now, the Lion is an emulation of a Marshall, and you guys know I am a Marshall fan, and my J.K. Lee's a Marshall, basically. It's a Friedman, but it's a Marshall. Okay, let me just play over a track and play over a minor blues, something we will be talking about. And hopefully the mix is okay. It's hard to tell sometimes. Okay, where's my track? Here's my track. All right. Okay, turn my mic back on. All right, so yeah, let's talk about what I've got going on here. Now, the first thing, let's talk about all this stuff. I love fractal stuff. I have it on the floor in front of me. I have the FM9. I'm a big believer in modeling stuff for many, many things. Live, I do prefer real amplifiers just because it's what I'm used to. They sound great. I love the sound of tube amps. It's what I grew up with. And so given in a perfect world, I will absolutely always choose a real amplifier if possible. Now, let's talk about, there's the simulators, of course, millions of them. The Tonex, there's the Quad Cortex, there's the Mini Cortex, there's all those things, and then there's individual pedals. Now, if they all have their place. So if we're just talking about at home, first of all, something like a Fractal, there's the price, and Fractal does everything. It's the all-in-one box, which is really, really cool. I'm looking at some of my notes so I kind of get everything here. Now, one thing I really like, so the all-in-one boxes, so that's got the delays, reverbs, choruses, everything. And there's often menus involved, so you have to really be pretty knowledgeable about the unit. It's not impossible, but there is a learning curve, for sure. So that's one. There's a difference between these things. I say the UA stuff that we have right here, they've got a number of pedals. This is the Line, which is their Marshall sort of clone. They have the Dream, which is Fender stuff, and then the Ruby, which is the Vox stuff, the Enigmatic, which is the Dumble thing. I have that. And they've got some heavier ones. I have the super heavy one, which I haven't really messed around with too much because it's not so much my taste. But it sounded good. I just don't end up using it that much. But the Lion, when I was on the road on the Czech Republic, on my little power amp, this was my backup for my amplifier. I was running into a real amp, but I brought this so I could hook it up into my pedal board, and I have a little Seymour Duncan Power Stage power amp. So I can, if my amp goes down, which is, pretty likely on a gig, not likely, but you have a tube amp, the amp goes down, what are you going to do? And what's great about something like this was it has speaker emulation in it, but I can turn it off as well. So you turn off the speaker cabinet, and I'm just using a preamp section of a Marshall, emulated of course, and then I plug that into the power stage with my effects, kind of like put it right here, my reverbs and delays after it, and I tested it out at rehearsal and on one stage with the power stage, and I thought it sounded really, really good. So I felt really confident that if things go down, I know what to do. Also, if things go down, these are just knobs. I can turn the knobs to change the tone that I want. And I really like that, especially in a situation like, I know my Fractal really well there's a desktop manager. On the faceplate of the Fractal, I am terrible. Like, you got to go through the menus, and some people are really great, like Leon Todd, if you watch Leon Todd, or anybody who really knows their Fractal stuff, they're just sitting there hitting the buttons. For them, it's super simple. For me, I've never really spent the time doing that because I haven't had the intention of using it on the road just yet or anything. So for me, these individual pedals work really, really well. So that's the thing for, say, gigs. And also at home, the funny thing about the Fractal is that I end up really using one or two amps anyway. Now, if any of you guys got my free Fractal patches, they're all of the same amp. It's all like a Marshall JTM 45, which is one of my favorite amps. So I just use that model and just change other settings in it. And that's really how I would work any Fractal or any kind of modeling thing. I use the one amp that I like, and I kind of just keep it. I know it seems to be kind of minimizing what you can do with these units, but for me, that's just the way I play guitar, right? So either I'm going to be using my Marshall on my gig or my Two-Rock, and then it's other stuff on top of it to kind of alter the sound. That's the way I feel most comfortable. Okay, so we also have over here, these are just fun. These are not part of the giveaway, but two pedals that I really, really love, and it's not like I'm hawking you away. Yeah, they're helping out with the video, but I do use their stuff, and I do love it. I think the Delver is such a great pedal. So it's got UA reverbs, which are great, and delay all in one. Really, really love this pedal. And this is just the reverb pedal, which is cool. Now, if any of you saw my recent gear video on my 4-cable method, I was using this. I may switch over to this. I just got this because I can have two different reverb sounds. Okay, so what I'm doing here, and this is why it's so much fun to get the sounds at home. I have a setup here. I've got two Atom A7 audio speakers. They're nice speakers, and I'm running into a Universal Audio Twin Duo, Apollo Twin Duo, and I'm just plugged straight into the line in with the Lion here. Now, I've got it set right now as a saved preset in the super bass setting. So I'm thinking of like a Marshall super bass, which is one of my favorite amps. I've got the super lead over here, but it's been kind of tweaked a little bit more towards super bass specs. So it runs a little cleaner. So the thing about this pedal and any of these ones is that you just kind of have to know how to use it, you know? So let's just mess around with it because I think it's a ton of fun. So I'll leave the delay and reverb and I'll just talk about how, and of course this applies to any module, any simulating pedal of any kind, whether it's a Strymon or anything like that. This is kind of the way I'm going to set it. So here, we get a number of different cabinets. I'm going to scroll through the cabinets, which is kind of cool. They have 3 built in. This is a V30 cabinet. And then there's like this, like Joe Bonamassa 412 cabinet. And the one I was using is this other 412 cabinet. Kind of a little thicker sound for the strap. Now, an interesting thing about Marshalls in general that is tricky, if you don't know, the 4 input Marshalls like this one over here have 2 volumes. There's like a treble volume or a high volume and a low volume. And the real trick about these amplifiers is that you have to learn how to mix those 2 volume knobs to get your bass and your treble. So let's kind of mess around with that, because that's really important to know whether it's real or simulated. The reason why I like this is because it simulates the real thing. So check this out. So I'm going to put these both at noon. I'm going to put everything at noon, bass, middle, and treble. There's a presence control button. So if I turn this one up, this is the low input. Here everything gets really kind of like really heavy, because that's the lower, the EQ, I forget really what exactly is going on. It's the lower input or the lower frequency input. Bright and low kind of. So if I turn up the bright channel, it kind of equals it out. So what you could do, and a lot of times, is you bring this down a little bit, and you mix the 2 together to where you think it sounds best. So if I want more low end, sometimes I don't do this. I don't go turn up the bass here. Sometimes I might roll up the bass volume. And if that's a little too much, you turn down the bass knob. So you get a fullness of the overdrive, if you want overdrive, from the bass channel. You're blending the 2 channels. So basically what you're doing is, you know when you jumper an old Marshall, you put one cable in here and another cable in there, and then you've jumpered the 2 channels together. That's what's going on here. And I really like that because you can really super tailor in a sound. It does take some getting used to. It's not, say, like, you know, bass, middle, treble, and volume and gain. It's very different from that, and it does take some time. That's why when I first started playing Plexi-style amps or 4-input Marshalls, I had no idea what to do with them. I thought they sounded terrible, because I was like, why is everything so bassy and crappy sounding? Because I just turned everything up, and I thought that was the way you're supposed to do it. And that is not the way you're supposed to do it, because it doesn't sound all that good. So let's just mess with that a little bit more, because I think that's a really important thing if you're messing with a Marshall kind of amplifier. So, get somebody cranking music outside. Okay, so we get a little more clean. So if I want more of a clean sound, you just dial those back, and I could turn up the controls here. Now, in the real world, I mean, I think Marshalls are some of the best clean platforms for pedals. That super lead sounds amazing clean with pedals on it. It's got all that high tons of headroom. It sounds amazing. It's just big and heavy, so I don't end up using it that much. But Marshalls have some of my favorite clean tones. So here, by just turning down, these are my gain, and turning up the volume and working my treble and bass, I can really super tailor the tone. Now, if we flip the switch here to this kind of alternate thing, we have a presence knob. So I can mess with that. We'll talk about presence in a second, too. So pretty cool. I think it's a great sound. So if we put a little clon on top of that. want a little more low end, I can maybe roll up the low volume. Check it out. See? So what I really appreciate about the Lion is I can dial in some of those really cool classic Marshall sounds. Now, let's just stick with this for a second. A little more gain back there. See, now I can start to, where's that treble? Presence. Now, presence is an interesting thing. It comes from the power amp section. So if you have a presence control on a real amp or something simulated, it works in the power amp section. So when you turn it up, it actually gives you a bit more gain too. Obviously it gives you more high end, but it also does actually work with the gain a bit too. So good trick to know. If you crank the treble on your amp, or the presence, let's check this out. A little cool trick. May not work here, but sometimes it works great. I'm going to crank the presence. I'm going to turn down the treble. That's a cool trick. I learned that by messing with Marshall. Sometimes I turn the treble down and turn the presence up. And it gets a nice different sound. Your attack changes. So really cool on any of these amps right over here. So also a good modeling situation like this or Fractal or anything will do the same. So let's try that again. I'm just going to play a little bit. I'm going to mess with the treble versus the presence. I never knew this until I started really getting into Marshalls. Okay, now I'm going to turn that treble up, and the presence is already up on full. See, now it's getting brighter. Now check this out. I have to go to this alt switch to bring down the presence. If I bring down the presence, turn up that treble a bit. There's a different kind of high frequency. Do you guys hear the difference in that? It might be kind of subtle. I can hear it here. I think it makes a really, really nice difference. You know? So something to mess around with when you're experimenting with, especially something like a Marshall kind of amplifier. Little Marshall tricks is the mixing of the two, and then the presence control is huge. Once again, how I do it is I would set everything at noon, get something I kind of like by mixing volume 1 and volume 2, and then drop down the bass, middle, and treble and mess with the presence here. So I set up my basic tone there. So pretty cool. Now also what I like is then you can have this 2 channels. Let's go to a brown sound. You know what I mean? Like that. Now here, if I want really more aggressive Van Halen things, a lot of times I won't put the bass channel. A lot of times, like Eddie, it's just plugged into the treble channel. We've got a cool beat down there too. And I can go between the two. So this remembers, this is what's ever set on the pedal, and this is your preset. There's like a second in between, millisecond. So let's just hear different cabinets for a second. That's the green, that's the vintage 30s. Now, speakers in the real world, or IRs or anything like that, if you want to change the sound of your amplifier dramatically, just change your speakers. So one thing I say to people like, I don't love this amp. Have you tried a different speaker? Really, really big. Like for me, V30s, when I first hear them, I'm like, ooh, that's a whole different sound. So I would have to start tweaking the amp in a way that would make more sense. But my ears always gravitate towards greenbacks. Right? So this is why I like these pedals in particular. Yeah, I'm friends with the company.
That's one thing, of course, helps. But that's not the reason. The real reason I think UA stuff sounds great, James Santiago design stuff sounds really, has great ears. But it's just so familiar and super easy to work with. If I'm on a gig, if I use this as a backup, or if I'm going over to do a recording at somebody's house, I can just bring this pedal board and I'm kind of good to go. I've got sounds I really like. I can dial it in. Super easy. Takes a bit of a time, but what I do like is that they really figured out it does work really like a Marshall does, interactively with these two volumes and the presence and the tone. So it's really, really well done. Now what they have, they have an app on the phone where you can start changing your sounds up, which is pretty cool. I had it up. We'll just take a look at that real fast. I was gonna hook it up with the, let's go to Lion, since it actually shows on camera. All right, let me put that over here. All right, so it's connecting. There we go. So they've got a lot of nice presets. So let's go to the factory presets. One of the ones I really loved is this sort of spoonful thing. So let me get my Les Paul, like a cream thing. And you can't really see that. All right, well, you can click on those. So let me get my Les Paul. Which is probably out of tune, but... so the presets are great to build off of. Here's the cream one. So that's pretty fun. Let's just go through a few other ones, just so we can hear what's on there. The volumes are a little different. Highway to Oz. Jailbreak Chunk. So there's a lot of really great sounds, and what I also liked is they're good starting points, because the interesting thing about some old recordings, when you hear the guitar, you're like, if you hear the isolated guitar, you're like, oh, that sounds a bit weird, and then you listen to the original track, and you're like, oh, actually, that's what it sounds like. So context is everything as you're recording. I think the best example of that is, say, like some Zeppelin stuff. You listen to a lot of Jimmy Page's guitar tones, and on their own, they're not great. They can sound a little rough around the edges, So that really helps out a lot. All right. To know that, to go like, okay, this sounds weird. And why does it sound weird? Because it's context for everything about the whole thing. All right, so let's just switch up guitars again. Over to here, the DGT semi-hollow. Let's get my preset. So let's talk about one of the main things I love doing, or what really makes any guitar sound come alive to me, is going to be adding reverb and a certain amount of delay. So for what I'm looking for, if I use, let's go for the Delver. I have the plate reverb on. So I just want enough to add some space, because without it, it's super dry, which is the sound of a Marshall. So I like Marshalls with some reverb on them. I think most of our favorite recordings are going to have Marshalls with reverb put on after the fact. So I'm just going to add a little in. Of course, I could add as much as I want, but just enough to fill in the space. kind of fill it out. And then put on some delay. And bring that down. Now, it definitely sounds different on this guitar than it did in the Strat, so I might just kind of darken it up a little. Now, one of the main things I would tell you with any unit, because everything is different in the sense of you have to set the parameters with your ears, not your eyes. Perfect example of that is one of my favorite amps right there is my Two-Rock. The settings on my Two-Rock when I'm going into the aux, the UA aux, are very different than the live situation. Because it's not real. Like you're going through this cabinet, the way they have it EQ'd, I think it sounds great. I just have to make sure I dial in my amp to make it sound good with the aux or whatever IR you're using or whatever artificial kind of cabinet thing. In the real world, I do my real cabinet on a gig, I might set it differently. So definitely put that aside. You just twiddle knobs until you're like, okay, that sounds good. And that's a big part of kind of like letting go of when you're comparing simulated stuff to real stuff. One is a very different environment. What speakers are you playing through? Are you playing through headphones? Are you playing through really good monitors? Are you playing through not so good monitors? Are you playing in a room that's really bassy? Or there's all these things make a huge, huge difference. So just dial in with your ears, not your eyes. That makes a huge difference in the way you approach setting stuff. Also, just another thing that is to really, really know. Let's say you're going to go on your gig and you've set up your pedal board like this and you're thinking, yeah, everything's dialed in, everything sounds awesome, and you go on the gig and you're like, oh, this sounds horrible. And that's almost always the case. Usually everything's going to be way wetter than you'd planned, like you have way too much reverb and delay on your setting when you go on the gig. Very often you will have too much low end because of the Fletcher-Munson effect. So volume's going to add more bass. Even the speakers pushing, you're going to hear more low end. So a lot of times I'm going to have to turn down the bass in my settings. I'm usually going to dial things back in terms of wetness, how much effect I have. And oftentimes I dial back the gain on the amplifier setting quite a bit as well, because when you're loud, you get more compression, it emulates, it makes it sometimes feels a little better when you're at a lower volume with a little more overdrive. And then when you get live, when the volume is there, I don't need as much overdrive. Okay, so that's something to think about. So what you set in your room may be very, very different than what it turns out to be when you're on your performance. Okay, so any questions so far? Because I want to jump over the Golden, which I really like too. So let's see if we got any questions. Okay, Bill just pointed. Good point on the importance of trying different speakers. I'm going to play around with that. Huge, huge, huge. Also, in the often this kind of world in the Lion, I kind of go between either this greenback cabinet or the other one. In the Fractal world, there's like two cabinets that I end up using all the time. I just like the way they sound. I grew up playing Marshall cabinets. Celestions sound like what speakers are supposed to sound like to me. So Celestions with my Two-Rock, Celestions with my Marshalls, I like Celestions with Fenders. I'm just used to the sound of Celestion speakers, particularly like this 65, this G65s, classic Lead 80 I really like a lot, the old ones, and greenbacks and the GH30. So the GH25s, the greenbacks, GH30s, or the 65s. I'm not a big vintage 30 fan. I think they sound great, but not the way I like them. There's other ones like the 70s, like they're a bit bright for me. Some people really like them. It's all taste, but so I get so used to it, you know what I mean? Like it's for me, the speaker cabinet is huge. So it's a great way to experiment with that too. Just going through different ones, you can start to figure this stuff out. Okay, let's see if we have any questions. Where can I get the background track? Yeah, I already answered that. Yes, it's up from my it's in mastering minor blues. It's going to be in that there, and it's also in it's in my jam tracks. You have my jam tracks, right? Can you store presets in the Delverb? Okay, good question. The Delverb, you have trying to remember. No, you can't. So the Delverb, the way I have it set, there's two modes for it. One, you can adjust it on your phone internally which one you mode. I have it on. I turn delay on and off, and this is my tap tempo for my delay, and the reverb is always on. Because I usually always reverb on anyway, so I just turn it up to where I want it. And then turn on my delay. Right? Right? So. Alright, so. I like this pedal a lot I like it a lot, period. If you watch my video using my Friedman, I have my El Capistan with an expression pedal. So in my gig, if I'm doing my full-on gig, I really like to be able to mix the wet amount of delay, depending on what song it is. But if I'm going on a gig where I'm sitting in with someone, this is awesome. Great reverb and great delay in one. Kind of set the reverb, the delay where I want it, and just turn it on, turn it off, and leave the reverb on the whole time. So I always have this. This is a pedal that's like sitting on the top of an amp. If I have something like an effects loop, I just leave it on for reverb. It's hard to beat UA reverb. Their stuff is great. So we'll take a look at this one. It's got spring, and they have the same reverbs, but this gets much deeper as to how you can adjust them. That's all. The UA pedals have as many presets that you want with the Bluetooth app, but only once you activate it, right? So there's a ton of stuff you can save, but you can't change them on the fly. You can change it with the app. Okay. Nice Marshall tutorial, Jeff. Thanks. Yeah, they're underrated in a way. You know what I mean? People, when I say they're underrated, I don't think, if you don't know how to use them, especially the 4-input ones, it can be really tricky and tweaky. And the weirdest thing is, even by just changing your low volume input, like your low volume compared to the high volume, it makes a big difference. And that treble thing too, really, really big difference. So if you have a 4-input Marshall, you get a chance to check one out, really do that. And I was watching a video from, you guys watch Michael Nielsen, Big Hairy Guitars? I love his stuff. He's a great guy too. He was talking about that with a Plexi on some older videos. Like, man, there's so many sounds inside a Plexi that a lot of people don't, if they're hard amps to just jump on and have everything sound great. I mean, unless you want to just turn up channel 1 all the way and crank it, and then you get that distorted sound. Okay, Jeff, have you used the UA Enigmatic 82 Overdrive Special Amp? Yes, I have that pedal, and I think it sounds great. I haven't used it on any gigs or any situations like that. There's a lot going on with that pedal. I haven't spent a ton of time with it. I've been most comfortable with just this one. I turn it on, I'm like, yeah, it sounds great. But that one sounds awesome. That's got some of the best clean sounds I've heard from any kind of emulating situation like this. Okay, so let's turn this off. Let's go over the Golden. The Golden's got one preset. So let's say I'm going to go. So that's similar to what I have set on this. Right, so it's the same reverb, as they both contain the same one. This is on the plate 140, which I actually use all the time. In many of my courses and videos and recordings, you hear that reverb from the Universal Audio plugin, the plate 140. I think it sounds awesome, so I just happen to have it in the pedal. And you can just choose the length of it here. Short. And I've got mod, and a delay. And I also like that you control the bass and treble. But what's really cool is I can go back and then there's my preset. And then whatever I have here is on the unit, so I can have 2 reverbs. So what I like about this is on some songs I want a much bigger reverb. On some ballads I might want a fuller spring or maybe want a spring for a surfy tune I have. And so now I can choose between these two. You might say, hey, Jeff, how come you don't run MIDI? I've never really gotten too into the MIDI world. I've tried, and then I'm just not good with it. Like, and if anything goes down, I got to sit there and program MIDI. I might get there at some point. I think I'd more lean towards like a gig rig sort of situation, or a like, you know, the quartermaster that Dan makes, you, like just a pedal switching part. Because I'm not doing too much of a pedal dance over here. Usually the expression pedal's been fine. The MIDI thing, what I find is, we've talked about this, is sometimes the pedals become part of the improvisation when you're playing. And I don't want to have to look for menus. I just like being able to lean over and turn up my delay, or turn up the expression pedal. When I did that pedal show, I was using the multi-switch for 3 different delay levels. I liked that, but I think I'm enjoying the expression pedal more because I have more freedom with it. The 3 different delay levels all changes when you go on different gigs in different rooms. And I'm not rehearsing with the band enough live to really get that dialed in. So very often on gigs, it's so on the seat, you know, by the seat of my pants, that the expression pedal angle works really, really well. So, all right, so let's put these on. Let's call up some of the fun presets on the Golden. There's some really nice reverb presets, so it's connecting on my phone. Yeah, man. It takes a second. Now, I wouldn't do this on a gig. I would just have it set ahead of time, you know. But you can save any of these presets, which is really cool. So let's just get this. Oh, this is a cool one that they have this on here. That's a chorus from the Golden. Put some reverb here. Pretty cool. Ambient space. Yeah. Let's find a nice spring reverb. Pretty cool sounding spring reverb to me. Then go back to this. I mess up here. Can I save that? What did I do? Oh, it's too late. Okay. There we go. So, like I said, I really. Okay, this mess up. Maybe I didn't save it. Okay, one thing. Let's dial that in. Hold on. So I'm going to my plate. I want to save it. Check it out. That's it. Now it saves, which is really easy. So, different guitar than my Strat. Hold down that bridge pickup. Yep, so like I said, I've recorded with them. I think they sound great. We got a giveaway going. You want to check that out. Sorry, USA only, but sign up for it. You win this. You'd win a Lion and a Universal Audio Orion pedal, which is their tape echo pedal. It's one of the small ones. It sounds great as well. And the giveaway's in about a month. But like I said in the beginning of the show, if you're just getting into the modeling world and you're a little put off by multi-effects or have all-in-one box kind of thing, which I really do like, and you guys, I use this Fractal all the time. There's a steep learning curve on those. They sound amazing. This isn't any commentary. They're just two different units in my mind. They do sort of the same thing in many ways, but sometimes one is way more tricky to get used to than the other. So when it comes down to, like, when I was going on the road, I needed a backup situation that I knew I'd feel good with. I brought this and a little power amp, so I know if my amp went down, I would have something to plug into immediately and be happy with the way it sounds. Same thing with the delays and the reverbs. For me, especially if I'm recording, I want to record something live, or if I'm at rehearsal, you could run this into a PA, you could run it into a power amp, you could run it into the return section of an effects loop of an amplifier, which is a really cool thing to do, by the way. You guys know that, right? You can run into the return of an effects loop, and it bypasses the preamp section of the amplifier you're playing through. So if you're plugged into like a Hot Rod DeVille, which I don't really love the front end of those amps, oftentimes I will plug into the effects return, and it just uses the power amp section. It can get really loud, so you have to have a volume pedal in there or a volume knob or something. But I end up doing that a lot because I just prefer the way the preamp that I would bring would sound. So there's a lot of cool options for that, but this one's really nice, or any of the ones that they make. Takes overdrives well too. Delverb's got different tape emulator, different delays. Memory Man, emulation tape echo, precision delay, which is like a cleaner. Modulation. Sometimes they change what it does a color. What's that doing this one? Some cool sounds. I think I'm always going with the Memory Man or the tape delay usually. I think they just sound cool. So I like the delay to kind of melt into it as opposed to being the key feature. All right, so any questions on any of this? The upshots, super portable. Things all add up money-wise, but I think I'm not sure what they're at now. I should take a look. But I just feel cool that if I'm on the road, I can stick that in my bag, and I've got a backup amp. I could run straight into a PA from it too, so that's also nice. Or into a flat response speaker or anything like that. Run it into the return of an effects loop. I can run it into the front end of an amplifier. I would highly recommend you turn off the cabinets, which you can do. I forget how you do. I think you just hold that switch up and then it turns them off. So that's really important. If you're running into a real speaker, like a guitar speaker, I would turn off the speaker emulation because that's going to make a big difference in the way it sounds. If I'm running into a DAW or direct into a PA, that's when you keep the speaker emulation on. Because then it'll sound terrible without it. Okay. There it is. I turned off the speaker emulation. Right, turn it back on. Right. So it makes a big, big difference. So one sounds like a swarm of bees. The other one sounds pretty good. Sounds really good. Okay. Jeff, have you any comparative listening to the UA pedals and the Kingsley 2 pedals? Yeah, I've had a bunch of the Kingsley pedals, and I've got a few. They're super different. Well, the Kingsley pedals work in different ways. If you're talking about the preamp pedals that completely, like you plug into this let me rephrase all this. This is like the whole amp in one. The Kingsley pedals are usually an overdrive pedal or a preamp pedal. So you're going to have to plug the preamp pedal into some sort of power amp situation, right? So as BB's saying, kind of different beasts as to really what they do. But the Kingsley, if you're going to plug it directly into something, you would have to use an IR. This has got sort of power amp emulation as well as speaker and power amp emulation. So it's the whole package, whereas the Kingsley is more, I think, really meant to be played with a tube amp or something. And then I know if he's got the preamp section, then he's got, I think, a pedal called the Hatchet, which emulates the phase inverter, which makes everything sound more right. So you're starting to expand your stuff, and his stuff sounds amazing, and he's a great player and a great guy. But they're two different, they serve two different functions. Like this is I got all this right here. It's emulating classic things, whereas his are more like real tube. So I would say they're very, very different. Hard to compare them, honestly. So now how do I get good sounds at home? This is part of the thing. Obviously, you're dialing whatever pedal it is you're doing. The key elements, I would say, is learn the amplifier that you are trying to use. Okay? So what I mean by that is some of these things are so close in the emulation. With the Fractal, it's ridiculous how close. And just this stuff, too. I know the guys who make these things. Any of these companies are going to be really, really good at this point because it's such a competitive market. So the reason why I spent some time with you guys earlier on how you dial in a Marshall, because if you got this pedal and you go, some of the presets sound good, then you start messing and you go like, this thing sounds terrible. One of the reasons for that is if you don't know how to set them, if you don't understand these two volume knobs interact with your tone knobs and that presence control, you might dismiss the pedal pretty quickly. Or I don't like Marshalls, or I don't like Voxes, or I don't like Fenders. So when you have all these things in one, in a box or in a floor unit or something, it's really, really helpful that you know the amp. I take it for granted because I've just been doing it for so long and I've had the opportunity to play a lot of amps. But it's very, very different. Dialing this or this in is very different than dialing my Friedman in. This is more like an 800, so there's just bass, middle, treble, gain, and volume, where these are the four inputs. These all have different input, so they sound different when you mix them. And you've got the two different high treble and normal, I should say. That's the name of these, right? High treble and normal. This is just volume 1, volume 2. That makes a huge difference. So these kind of amplifiers are much tweakier than, say, a Marshall 800 or a Fender Deluxe Reverb, things like that. Now, another thing really kind of cool to think about is if you want to crank a Fender to get overdrive at it, same thing with a Marshall, you often dial back the low end, the bass, because that's going to add more flub. So if I were, if I'm going to, you're going to get more like flub, flub, flub. So I'm going to dial back the low end, and that really tightens everything up. So same thing when I first got my Deluxe Reverb many years ago that I sold. Anyway, I didn't know it. I was turning up the bass and it just sounded horrible because you were adding bass and it was everything was kind of flubbing out, Okay, so Lamar Brewster, I want to love these pedals, but needing an app for full functionality really bums me out. I don't want to use my phone to play guitar. Well, if you notice, I haven't. So I understand what you're saying. The cool thing about these pedals and why I like this is you don't need the app. The app gives you some kind of cool things that you can do with it. But what I really like is the setting I have here, I just dialed in from knowing the features of the amplifier. Right? I like a super bass. I did that. I like the way that cabinet sounded, and I have my bass, middle, treble, and presence, and I just dialed it in using my ears. So you don't have to use the app. Also, the cool thing, if you do like the app, what I've also done too is I find a preset that I like, I tweak it, and I save it. and then there it is. You know, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but same thing with the Golden, or this. I haven't used the app for these at all. They're pretty self-standing. You've got 3 different kinds of spring reverbs with treble and bass on there, and mix and modulation, and that's kind of it. You know, it's pretty. I wouldn't. I like I said, I don't really look at the app just to point it out. That wouldn't be a turn off for me. A lot of people talked about it, especially with this pedal and these ones. I don't even really use the app at all. So just to point that out. Okay, somebody's asking if I'm using the microphone. Okay, the microphone is picking up my strings. When I was playing earlier, I turned off my microphone. So let me turn off my microphone for a second. And now the mic's back on. Either that, or I would have to have headphones, and you're still going to pick it up, and it's not much you can do about it live. And I can't keep on turning it off when I'm talking because I'll forget, and I'll turn off my microphone, and people will be like, "Your mic is off," because I've tried that. So yeah, you can dial back the mic. I dial back the mic at some points. So you heard the difference there. Okay. You remember the only way you can get distorted tones is take a razor blade to the bass player's speaker cone. Pepperidge Farm remembers. Pretty funny. Yeah, as BB said, it's because I sometimes forget to turn the mic on and off. You know, it's one person doing the whole thing. You know what I mean? Turning on and off the cameras and doing everything like that, changing the stuff. All right, so. Once again, if you guys are free on Saturday, I have my mastering minor blues masterclass going on. We talk about digging deep into a minor blues, starting off very simple, using your pentatonic scales to outline the changes, learning how to make more interesting changes, right? Being able to do that, get some of those changes. Adding in some of those really cool melodic minor sounds. So we'll start off really easy, get into like Thrill Is Gone kind of stuff, and then add in some more things that I found to be really, really useful and super common. You know, what I love about when you get into this stuff is you're like, I've heard that. Well, that's all that is. You know, sometimes it can be really, really simple. So that's going to happen on Saturday, the 27th at 27? Sorry. Being an idiot, at 12 noon. So Saturday at 12 noon Eastern Time. If you cannot make it live, you can watch it as many times as you want on the replay. I'll have an HD video of the whole thing. But the live experience is kind of fun because you can ask questions, and that's the big difference on it. So to do a little bit of a summary, real fast, like I'm kind of lazy. I love the fractal. I find it sounds amazing. I've never, after all the years of owning fractal and using it on pretty much every course you've ever heard, it's been my fractal because it sounds great. I've never really learned how to program it from the faceplate. I just haven't. Because on the road, I'm assuming I'm always going to be using an amplifier. So what I really liked about having a Lion on the road with me was I had that as a backup if I needed it. Also, if I'm going to go record, so hey, come on over and record, oftentimes you use a plug-in that's there. FM9's kind of a little heavy. You know, a lot of times if anybody's producing it, they're going to want to add their own effects later. So I've just shown up with this, and I'll bring a reverb because I like the way, and sometimes they want you to play with reverb. I'll just bring my pedal board and something like the Lion. Because very often in New York City, if you're going to go play on somebody's something or other, you're not micing a loud amp if it's at somebody's house. So many things are in the box now that I like this because I don't need the app. I can just, okay, let's brighten it up. Okay, I'm just going to turn up the treble. So if you live in the United States, you can join the giveaway and you can get one. Hopefully on your own, along with the Orion pedal, and that'll be about the giveaway is at the end of October. Okay. Yeah, this is a DGT. Jeff's various playing the changes courses are some of the best I've come across. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Kingsley's also work really well as a front of UA modelers. On my board is an OD page into an enigmatic or Ruby, right? Yeah. So what I also really like about, just put pedals in front of them. They take pedals really well. And for me, the Kingsleys are, what I really love about the Kingsley pedals and why they're so good is their tube. So they feel really good, you know, when you're playing them. And I think I definitely feel like all these things have come a really, really long way. But I do like still playing tube amps. I think they still just feel better when they're loud. I think they're just better. They're easier for me to work with because I just know them, right? And that's a big part of it. You guys, I'm sure, will watch John Cordy, and he talks a lot about this stuff. There's such a learning curve that I've never gone through or wanted to, because I've never had to, of gigging out with a fractal because I grew up in the age of amplifiers. Like everybody had I had a Marshall with the 412 cabinet. Like that's just what you brought to gigs. Because you could, everybody had a Marshall, and 50-watt head and a Marshall, in 50-watt Marshall or whatever it is I had, the Marshall preamp and power amp into a 4 or 212 cabinet, because that's just the way gigs were, and you could play loud. So that's all changed, and so smaller sometimes. So my point is, I've never had to do enough of those professional gigs where I had to really, really be super conscientious about the volume. Most of my gigs are my gigs, and I can be at the volume I somewhat find to be reasonable for the gig. I don't like playing super loud. I just like playing through a real amp. That being said, I plugged my fractal into the power amp that I turned off the speaker cabinet emulation. I plugged it into the Seymour Duncan power stage into my cabinet. I was like, that sounds pretty good. And then I plugged in the Lion. I'm like, that sounds pretty good too. So all of them sound really, really good. Do they sound as good as the real amp? I don't know in terms of using them on a gig. Okay, another quick thing is when I gig, it's always my gig. I'm not in anybody else's band, and I'm not playing in a cover band situation or anything like that. So for my gig, it's such a guitar gig, because it is totally a guitar gig. I want to have the best sound that I'm the most comfortable with. So I'm going to bring the real stuff because I can, where I'm playing. And if people are coming to see me play, I think they kind of want to see some of that. But mainly it's because I feel the most comfortable on it, and I think it sounds the best. Could things sound equally as good with a fractal or the Lion if you totally dialed it in? Maybe. I just haven't had the time to just dial all that in. It takes a little bit more work. The fractal definitely much more work. And if you're using a flat response speaker, there's a lot more work involved in terms of those frequencies. Now, my friend Angus Clark, he's been on here in the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. That's all fractal. And it sounds amazing. But, there's a front of house guy. He's got a guitar tech. They spent time dialing in the tones, shaving off those frequencies that weren't quite right. So it's not a plug in and play situation. Whereas I feel like if you give me pretty much any amp and my pedal board, I can get a sound that I can feel pretty confident with and make it through the gig. So, yeah. But I'm going to dig more into this. Like I said, BV helped me. He totally hooked me up with Robert. He sent me this and the Andy Timmons Mark III driver, which everything sounds really great off the top of my head. It's Klon. And you guys watch the videos, it sounds pretty spot on. With some nice tweaks, so I'm looking forward to getting to that. I'll talk more about it too. I'm definitely looking forward to digging into this. Andy always sounds amazing, and if he likes it, it's got to be good. Just does it do what I want something to do? We'll find out. Just a quick question. So, if you guys saw the video I did on the 4 cable method, it's funny. Like tons of people are watching that video for me. Like it's amazing. Like I talked about gear, and suddenly there's all these people liking the video, whereas sometimes I do the teaching, you don't get as much feedback. So just from you guys, like, do you like some of those gear videos too, along with the teaching, like interspersed with the teaching videos? You know, always trying to keep the YouTube channel lively and exciting and fun for me and fun for the audience. So if you let me know, I would love to see the kind of videos you'd love to see from me, because you know the playground, or whatever you want to call it, the field that is YouTube, is ever changing. They change the algorithms. So a lot of people say to me, like, I didn't even know how to video. I don't even see them anymore, because if you start watching, say if you watch a video on, furniture refinishing, then your feed is going to be full of furniture refinishing videos. If you watch some dumb video on something like God knows what, and then suddenly they're recommending you more and more of those videos. So it's really funny. I'll find like, oh wow, I haven't gotten recommended a video from from channels that I'm subscribed to anymore, because it's just so it's a flooded market, and there's so many people on YouTube, and they do change their algorithm all the time, and we are at the mercy of the YouTube algorithm, right? They could just change it, and you're like, oh, okay, that doesn't work anymore. Like shorts, like everybody watches shorts. I got to do more shorts. There's a lot involved behind us. I'm not complaining, just saying there's a lot involved behind a YouTube channel and staying on top of the trends that are in the YouTube market. What are people interested in? The gear videos I like doing are just stuff I like using, or stuff that I think sounds good. I'm not really great at doing the videos of like guys who are really great at them, like Pete Thorne or RJ, where they like compose songs around the pedal and they do it and they run through it. I think I sound the same on everything, largely, and I don't have the energy. I'd rather teach guitar than to do that. I think I'm better at that than demoing pedals, So I just want to use stick to what I'm comfortable with. But I do like talking about gear. I love talking about gear, especially the stuff I use, and I think it's exciting to do. BB, yeah, YouTube. Huge YouTube updates happening now into the end of this year to come. Yeah. It's crazy. They can change stuff you're on their platform. They own it. They can change whatever they want. And it's, so for me, for the YouTube channel to do this, it's really like, it's for me to get you to know about my teaching channel. So once again, if you liked what I do, go to the teaching channel and pick up a course or take the masterclass this weekend. I think you'll really enjoy it. Or there's affiliate links for like these pedals or things like that. I think it's really, those are the ways to do it. Like Sweetwater, if you buy something, it doesn't have to be the pedal. If you buy something over, I don't know how long a period of time, I got a cookie, that I'll get a small piece of the sale, even if it was like 2 weeks later, even if you didn't buy the thing that you went over there to look at from me. So that's kind of cool. That's super helpful, because it's all these little things that pull it together. But the main thing is it's to get you to check out my teaching channel, and my favorite thing to do is to teach. And also I like dialing in gear because I have a ton of fun with it. So just finally before we go, hey, Jason Carter just showed. Oh, accidentally clicked on a flat earther video once, and the algorithm is still reminding me. Yeah, it's crazy, right? Then someone's just like, not interested. Do not show me this anymore. It's really funny. Jeff Motter, just as an FYI, I got a Vibe machine after hearing yours, my favorite Vibe pedal. Same goes for Vemram ODS. Oh, great, man. That's awesome. Yeah, I love that pedal. I was talking to the guys over at Drybell. They're like, you bought that pedal in 2013. And that Drybell pedal, it's not here right now, but it's never been off any of my boards. I love Univibe. It's one of my favorite pedals, but I didn't realize I've been using that pedal consistently. That's one of the that's one of the most consistent pedals I've had since I got it. That and the El Capistan. Those are like two pedals that I never switched. I've done through different overdrives. I really love the Vemram stuff. This Keeley stuff sounds great. any kind of Klon thing. I've been using Klon style stuff for quite some time too. But right now I'm just rambling. Okay, lastly, this is my DGT semi-hollow. It's a limited run. And I changed the pickups to Ron Ellis pickups. I like them. I like them kind of better than what was in there. Sorry, David. Play all the same licks. Angus Clark. There's just something about Ron's pickups. They're just really reactive that I really love. And I changed just the volume and tone knob configuration. I have a master volume and 2 tones. The original DGTs have this is the volume for the bridge and this is the volume for the neck, and it's a master tone. I was always messing that up on gigs. So now it just feels kind of like a Strat, master volume and 2 tones. So I've done that. Yeah, just really love these guitars. And a Tuttle. Anyway, okay. Any more questions? I'm going to reiterate one more thing. Dial the pedals in with your ears, not your eyes. That took me a while. Once again, as I was dialing in things with my aux, I'm like, oh, this thing sounds terrible. And I'm like, wait a minute. You're not doing what you know to do. What sounds good? It sounds really bassy. Okay, just turn the bass down on your amp. Who cares? It's like the thing that you're doing, trying to record live or from your live amplifier versus recording at home with some sort of emulation device, or whether it's a real amp, it's just different. So the microphone or the IR is going to interact differently. The model might be of a different model of an amp than you. All these things. So just use your ears. That's the biggest thing I could say in terms of like advice as you're dialing this stuff in. And once again, just read up a little bit on the amplifier that you were messing with in your emulation. We got Angus Clark on here played his ass off last night at the bitter end with this band Coons Clark Band. Definitely check him out, Coons Clark Band. Angus, can you put the link to that? Please do. It's really great. So Angus is a plexi guy. So check out Angus's YouTube channel as well. And so we've talked a lot about dialing in those 2 volumes. So if you're going to get a plexi style pedal like this, or if you happen to win it, give it some time. Go on YouTube videos learning how to actually dial in that amplifier. And that'll make a big difference in the amp that you were using in your emulation thing, because it's a lot of information to know. What kind of speakers do I generally like? What kind of microphones do I generally like? So the Fractal can go super deep with that. You can change all your microphones, your microphone placements, all these things that are really cool to be able to do. Sometimes it's completely overwhelming. So sometimes something like this has got a much more limited range of the speaker cabinets. The decision's made for you. And I do that with my Fractal. I have dialed in my own cabinet for my settings for my patches that BB just put up. And I end up using the same cabinet on all of them, and I use the same cabinet on most of anything. If I'm going to start using a different amplifier or messing around with sounds on my Fractal, I start with the same cabinet that I'm really familiar with. And then I'll maybe change things from there. So that's really important. Well, one other little piece of interesting information that I think it was Devin Townsend, who's the guitar player, he had an excellent point about using Fractal or any of these kind of things. If you're going live, like a real on stage, always use the same cabinet, as opposed to changing. If you want to change amp heads and clean sounds, do that, but keep the same cabinet IR, because the front of the house guy, if you change your cabinet, it could change the way he's EQ'd everything. That was really, really good piece of advice. So it's another reason why I would advise you to kind of stick with one cabinet that sounds good to you, and then start tailoring your sound around that cabinet. All right, cool guys. I appreciate you being here. Once again, my Minor Blues Mastery Masterclass, 33% off. That's happening this weekend on Saturday at 12 noon. Digging into mastering the minor blues. Can't make it live. You can watch it on the replay as many times as you want. Tab notation, all those things are come with the course. And Angus Clark, right? You get Spotify. Definitely check it out. Coons Clark Band. They were rocking. It's a great band. And 14 blues tracks The blues track, you were asking earlier about where that minor blues, it's in that collection of blues tracks as well. All right, everyone. I really appreciate it. Please like the channel and subscribe and all that kind of stuff. And I really appreciate everyone. Angus, I got your Playing in the Style of David Gilmour course. It was incredibly cool stuff. Thank you. Yes, it's an excellent course. So check out Angus for sure. All right, everyone. I will see you, next week. Hopefully I'll see you guys on Saturday. Come do that. Be awesome. All right. I'll see you guys later. Have a great week. Bye. Thanks, Beavy.